Let's talk Pete Davidson. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I want to answer the question that men keep asking: why are women attracted to Pete Davidson? Short answer: they're not. Thank you very much. This has been a short video. I'm gonna explain this deeper because I feel like I'm seeing a lot of men online trying to figure out why women are attracted to Pete Davidson, and they're getting it really wrong. And I was gonna do just a quick short TikTok video about this, but it's just too big an issue, and I really wanted to dive into this in a fuller video. I did do a quick TikTok video about this topic when Pete Davidson first started dating Kim Kardashian, and I got a lot of hate for it. And the biggest complaint I got from people was they were like, do you know Pete Davidson personally? I mean, they were just writing it in a comment, but like, that's what they sounded like in my head. Like, do you know him personally? I don't know Pete Davidson personally. However, I did work as a stand-up comedian for 15 years. I've known thousands of Pete Davidsons. I know his type. So I am very aware of the attraction or lack of attraction that women have for men like Pete Davidson. So I'm seeing a lot of men try to figure out why women are attracted to Pete Davidson, and they're getting it really wrong. So I'm here to mansplain, womansplain, I don't know, something. Because I feel like the way that men are trying to justify this Pete Davidson thing is gonna lead a lot of men down the wrong path. So a lot of men are justifying that it's because he's tall. I do believe he is very tall. I don't remember his exact height, but he is very tall. Yeah, height matters. To a lot of women, height matters. However, I know tons and tons of women that wanted a man that was so tall and they had this huge height requirement. At the end of the day, most of them ended up with a man who fit all of their requirements but wasn't that tall. Yes, women are attracted to height, but for most women, height is not the here-all, end-all, be-all. A man just being tall, I've known a lot of men who were really, really tall and did not have great relationships, and some of them had a really hard time finding women because they didn't have other qualities. Like, height is not going to put food on the table. Yes, height can lend itself to a man being better able to protect, but not every man who's tall actually knows how to protect himself or a partner. Like, not every man has the drive to do that. Not every man who's tall is going to be able to be a provider. Like, there's other qualities that women are going to look for. So yeah, height is appealing. Height might be a make or break with a certain guy, but it's never going to be the only thing that a woman is looking for. And if a woman is only looking for height, at the end of the day, she's a pretty shallow person anyway, so that's that. So then men want to say, well, it's because he's funny. I want to say, as a former stand-up comedian, I think I am an expert on humor when it comes to performance humor versus like real life humor. I actually have a video talking about the masculine feminine energies in stand-up comedy. I also have a video talking about women in humor and can women be feminine and funny. I highly recommend you check out those videos. But I want to talk a little bit about men and women in humor. Now, most people, both men and women, will put sense of humor pretty high up on their list of things they're looking for in a partner. I think with women, it's maybe a little bit higher up usually than it is with men. But most of the time, both men and women are going to find sense of humor to be a very valuable quality in a partner. Women tend to want a man who will make them laugh, whereas men are looking for a woman who will laugh at their jokes. So when they say sense of humor, it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing. There's actually a comedy documentary that I watched years ago, and there was a female comic, oh my god, she was a big deal in the 80s, I don't remember her name, and she was talking about how it just boggled her mind that like she'd do comedy with some of like the grossest men in the world, and like women would hit on them after the show because they were funny. Whereas she's like, as a woman, if you're just as funny or funnier, you're not gonna get the same attention from men. Totally true. As a female stand-up comic, I can attest to that. That's absolutely true. Although she did point out that because she was a lesbian, lesbians liked the funny, so she still got laid. And I will admit, honestly, I've been hit on a lot more after comedy shows by lesbians than I have been by men, but that's a whole other story. But yeah, at the end of the day, women do value humor and a man who can make them laugh. However, when it comes to performing comedy, and I don't actually know Pete Davidson's entire like career history. I know he writes comedy. I know he's been a sketch comedy writer on SNL. I don't know his stand-up background, whether he's done straight stand-up or whether he did much of it, or if he's really just a sketch comedy guy. I don't know a ton about his actual career path. And honestly, the different types of comedy, like comedy writing versus sketch writing versus stand-up writing, like, yeah, humor is humor. However, the skills and the personality types of those different things, like being an improv performer or things like that, like they vary from person to person. I've hung out with stand-up comics and I've hung out with, like, say, improv performers, and there's some overlap and there's definitely people who do both, but their personalities, like, just in everyday life, very, very different. And there's also a lot of people, and again, I don't know Pete Davidson personally, I know as people love to point out, but the people who are the funniest as far as writing, as far as performing, as far as creating comic art, are not always the funniest people in person. Like, I think so many people think that comedians, because they're funny on a stage or in a sketch or something, that they're automatically funny in person. That's not always the case. It is sometimes, it's not always the case. And some of the funniest people I have ever known in my life, like to talk to in person, could never get up on stage or write a comedy bit or anything. And some of the people who I've seen on stage perform, who are some of the most brilliant comedic minds in the world, are not funny at all in person. So the fact that people are judging Pete Davidson by his performing skills, whether or not as a man you think that he's funny, does not mean that he is funny when you meet him in person. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. That I don't know, but it's not a guarantee. So I think there's this idea that men have, oh, because he's funny, because he does sketch, because he does this, he must pull chicks. That's not necessarily the case. I've known some incredibly funny men who couldn't get a date to save their life. So that's not the determining factor when it comes to women picking a partner. Yes, women do like a man who can make them laugh. I would also point out, making women laugh and making men laugh, not always the same thing. I mean, it can be. There are some things that are universally funny. However, I would say some of the most iconic, humorous people in history that men find funny are not what women find funny. Look at the Stooges. How many times have we had conversations where men are obsessed with the Stooges and women don't get it? Just because men watch Pete Davidson and think that he's funny does not necessarily mean that women are going to think he's funny. The only comedy I'm really familiar with seeing Pete Davidson in is like his early time on SNL. I didn't particularly find him very funny. I have a very high standard for humor and what comedy is because of my background in it, but I didn't find him very funny. I didn't find his comedy all that unique. Now, he might actually be brilliant and he may have grown and developed since then. I don't really know. Comedy and humor is very subjective. And if you're a man and you're like, well, of course women like him because he's funny, because you think he's funny, doesn't necessarily mean that women are gonna think he's funny. Some might not. I don't want men to get too caught up in the idea that, oh, because this guy's funny, he must automatically pull chicks. That's not necessarily the way it works. I did see a guy who was trying to understand the Pete Davidson appeal in the idea that women want to protect her, and that men can protect in different ways. That's true. However, his argument was that, well, Pete Davidson can shoot anyone down with his wit. So if Pete Davidson can shoot anyone down with his wit, then that's a protector. That doesn't really work in real life. I mean, there is something to the idea that, like, some men have the physical strength of physically protecting someone. Some men have the financial resources to put a woman in a gated community so she doesn't have to worry about intruders. He may not have the physical strength to protect her, but he has the money and the resources to put her in a safe environment or to do things to protect her, yes. There's no woman out there that's gonna feel safe with a man just because he can shoot someone down with their wit. I'm gonna tell you right now, I shoot down a lot of people with my wit. A lot. It's never made me feel safe walking through a bad neighborhood. It's never made me feel safer in a sketchy bar. No woman is gonna be like, oh, I think he can protect me because he's so funny. Like, that's not gonna happen. So I do agree, women want to protect her. And that protection can look differently in different people. That said, a man being witty is never gonna cut it. As people love to point out, I don't know Pete Davidson personally. However, I don't know if he is currently smoking weed. I do know he has mentioned at times in the past that he is in recovery. He's quit smoking weed. Back when I saw him on SNL, that was kind of his shtick, was like kind of like the pothead teenager. So I don't really know where he would go with that if he stopped smoking weed. I don't know if he still does. I don't really know the deal with that. However, this might be controversial, but I'm gonna say it. If a man is smoking weed, he is not in his masculine. You cannot be masculine and smoke weed. You can't do it. It's not possible. So if he's quit and he's sober and he's not addicted to marijuana anymore, then yeah, maybe he's in his masculine. I don't know. I don't really know him. Again, like people love to point out. If he is still smoking weed and that's his persona, that's his thing, he's not in his masculine. Plain and simple. Honestly, I've spent a lot of time around comedians. Creating comedy tends to come from a very feminine energy place. It does. It's creative. It's creative energy. It does. That doesn't mean that you can't be a comic, you can't be masculine. Creating comedy, that kind of creative field, is very feminine. Now that said, you can be a comedian and be very masculine. It's possible. However, when you're in that creative energy, you tend to be more in your feminine. Nothing wrong with that. However, you're not necessarily going to be embodying the fullness of your masculine energy. And many comics, I don't know if Pete Davidson's like this, but I'm willing to bet he probably is, because many comics are like this. They tend to be man children. They tend to not be fully stepped into their masculine energy. A lot of them still are in that like little boy energy. Most of them I've dealt with have been. So men who are not necessarily embodying that full masculine energy are going to be much more appealing to women who are more in their masculine energy. They're going to also be very appealing to women who are not fully connected to their own feminine energy, because maybe they're on birth control. Birth control is rampant, and when you are a woman and you're on birth control, you're not ovulating, you're not really looking for a partner to mate with. Even if you say you are, because you say you want a family or things like that, like your urge to mate with a truly masculine man is going to be diminished. You're going to be much more attracted to more effeminate men. I would argue somebody who is more in a creative field, someone who is more man-childish, fun, playful, that kind of thing, is going to be more appealing to you if you're a woman in her masculine, or you're a woman who is suppressing her natural feminine hormones. Men like that are going to be more appealing to women in that sense, or to women who maybe have trauma around masculinity or masculine men. They're going to seek a man who is more effeminate. There are a lot of women today who are very disconnected from their natural feminine energy. They're more attracted to man children, and I would really highly encourage men to pay attention to that and not assume that, okay, well, this woman looks feminine and she's hot and I want her, so I need to now emulate this guy that she's attracted to. You need to ask yourself, like, okay, is this woman actually a feminine woman? Is she embodying her feminine energy? If you are, as a man, looking for a feminine woman, you want to find a woman who's in her feminine energy. And if you find a woman who maybe just looks feminine, but is actually more in her masculine energy, if you're a masculine man, you're going to repel. And I don't want to see men start trying to slip more into their feminine or less into their masculinity just to appease women, because that's how the cycle continues. That's how our society keeps devolving, is because men are like, oh, well, women like Pete Davidson, so now I have to try to be like Pete Davidson. It's like, okay, are feminine women attracted to Pete Davidson? Because I guarantee you, the feminine women that I deal with and I talk to are not attracted to a Pete Davidson type. That's not what they're into. So if you as a man start jumping to the conclusion that because Pete Davidson's popular, I need to be like him, you need to ask yourself, are the women that you really truly want are the ones who are attracted to him, or is he just popular right now with the popular women? And I think that that's an important thing. I don't want to see men start backtracking their masculinity, or start not embodying their healthy masculinity because they're kind of lured away by the attention of some women who they probably wouldn't be happy with anyway. So let's get into the real reason why Pete Davidson has been dating so many hot women. His first relationship with Ariana, which is his first big public relationship, that may have been real. I don't really know. Like, I know she had gone through a very public breakup. She was vulnerable. Her and Pete started dating. I don't know if that was like an orchestrated relationship. I'm gonna guess it probably was, but it might have been somewhat real. Who knows? But really all it takes for a man is one attractive woman, attractive, popular woman who people put up on a pedestal, to be attracted to him. And every other woman is like, oh, he must have something. And they start paying more attention to him, right? So it could have been anybody, but the fact that he dated Ariana automatically upped his status, right? It automatically made him more appealing to women who are looking for a man solely because he's popular or of some level of status. So enter Kate Beckinsale. I don't know anything about Kate Beckinsale, but she does seem to be a woman who's getting older and is sort of desperate to hang on to some level of being seen in the public eye. So she dates him because they're gonna get in the media, because it's like he's Ariana's ex. Probably was never really about him. It was about the fact that she was gonna now get media attention because she was dating Ariana's ex. So now he's got this reputation for dating attractive women. So enter Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian, yes, has cultivated a look and an image that is considered by society to be very feminine. But Kim Kardashian is very, very masculine in her energy. If you watch her, you watch her show, you watch anything she does, Kim Kardashian is very much in her masculine energy. She's also an attention whore, which most of these women that he's dated are massive attention whores. They need the media attention. They thrive on the media attention. I am 100% convinced that the Kim and Pete Davidson relationship was strategy. He went along with it because it elevated his status, because he's like, okay, hey, I get seen and more women are gonna want me because after all, I'm now seen as the guy that dates all of these hot women once they go through a breakup or something. And Kim Kardashian got in the media, she got in the news. The Kardashians especially, but most of these Hollywood people, they thrive on that tabloid media attention. It's like lifeblood for them, that they need that. I would be shocked if Pete and Kim actually had sex, to be totally honest with you. Like, I don't believe that that relationship was real at all. The other relationships may have been real, maybe not, I don't know. I doubt at all that Kim and Pete really were an item in any way. That whole thing, I'm sure, was for show. And I guarantee you, Kim wore the pants in that relationship. It was not about, Pete was just along for the ride. He was going with the flow, and Kim was the one in charge. So if you as a man are like, hey, I want to go with the flow, I don't really want to actually step into my masculine energy and be a man, then that's a great strategy if you want a woman to run your life for you. Most men are going to argue that they don't want a woman to run their life for them. They want to be respected and they want to be the leader. So if you as a man want to be respected and be the leader of your relationship, you're not going to want to team up with a woman who just looks feminine. You're going to want to team up with a woman who actually does embody her feminine energy and is actually going to polarize with your masculine energy. I have a lot more videos about masculine and feminine polarity. If you're not familiar with what I mean by this, if this is the first video of mine that you're seeing, I have a ton of other videos talking about that, so I'm not gonna dive into that too much here. But yeah, so he's gotten this reputation. Now he's with Emily Ratajkowski, I don't know, whatever her name is. And now they're dating. Well, she's clearly a media whore. She's an attention whore, just like the Kardashians. She's like constantly needs the attention and everything. That's her thing. She's an over-the-top radical feminist. She's talked about that. Like, most of these guys that are like, yeah, he's dating these hot women, they're looking at them visually. But you also have to ask yourself, are these women that I would actually want to be in a relationship with? Like, these are the types of women that most men would probably hook up with because society tells you that they're incredibly hot and they're overly sexualized. But that said, most of these women are not the type of woman that a masculine man would want to be in a relationship with. So if you as a man want to embody the masculine energy of your relationship, you want to be a leader in your relationship, these are not the types of women that you're gonna want to be dating, because these are the types of women that are going to be in their own masculine and you're going to be butting heads. So whether or not you are physically attracted to them, I know as men you kind of go for the thing that you're physically attracted to, but you have to also pay attention to the type of woman that she is, because if you end up in a relationship with a woman who's just physically attractive, but she is absolutely in her masculine energy and is constantly butting heads with you, she's gonna eventually look unattractive to you no matter how attractive she is. I don't really believe that any of these relationships that Pete Davidson's having are actually real relationships. He is along for the ride, he's going with the flow in these relationships, and these women are running the show. Probably their agents, their handlers are running the show, but this is all for media attention. What does it do? It convinces men that women are into these more like effeminate guys that are just funny, that just go with the flow, and that these women want to be the ones in charge. All it does is empower the feminist movement. And I'm talking about modern day feminists who want men to be weaker. They want men to appear weaker. And I'm not saying that all men that are funny are weak. I'm not at all like putting all men that are comedians into a certain category. I've known a lot of men who are comics, and a lot of them protect and provide for their families. A lot of them don't. And a lot of them don't have that ability. And a lot of them are man children, and that is what our society wants men to be, because it keeps men weaker. In reality, these whole relationships that Pete Davidson is having are staged. They make these women relevant in the media. They give these women more attention, which this attention is these types of women that he's involved with are women who thrive on that constant media attention, and them dating him gives them that constant media attention. He is going with the flow in all of these relationships and just letting himself be used because it just makes him look better, and all these men are like, hey, what does Pete Davidson have? And it gives him that kind of like allure, when in reality most men, if they got into those relationships with those women, if you're a masculine man, you're gonna be miserable. You're not gonna wanna be in that relationship. And it encourages the men in society to see what he's doing and what he's getting as being the ideal. And it actually leads to men weakening themselves. I don't have to step into my masculinity because this guy's not doing that and he's getting hot chicks, and it's conditioning men to be weaker. And the weaker that men get, the more masculine women are gonna have to get. It's a vicious cycle, and it's gonna keep going unless we wake up to it. So look, I don't make this video to trash Pete Davidson, even though I know it probably sounds like I am. At the end of the day, he might be a perfectly nice person. However, he is not the embodiment of masculinity. He's not the embodiment of masculine energy, at least not the way he's acting in these relationships. However, these women are very much embodying their masculine energy. I think instead of spending a lot of time being like, why are women so attracted to Pete Davidson, we need to wake up to the fact that that's what whoever we think it is, the elites, the glitterati, the powers that be, the whatever you want to call it, deep state, I don't know, whatever, whoever you think is the person in charge, like they want men to think that Pete Davidson is what women want, because it makes men decide, oh, well, I don't really have to be that strong. I don't really have to be a physical protector. I don't really have to actually be with one woman or actually dedicate myself to raising a family. I don't have to do any of those masculine things because, well, look at this guy, he's not doing that and he's doing fine, right? It's designed to keep devaluing masculine and feminine energies. And I want men to kind of be more awake to that. Women should be as well, but I see a lot of men trying to analyze this, and I really want to make sure that men don't get too off track and distracted by the whole Pete Davidson phenomenon. Like, it's entertaining, it's funny, okay, whatever. Is he gonna date Tom Brady next? That would actually be pretty funny if he did. I think that would be entertaining. But anyway, just saying, I don't want men to get too off track here. I also want to make a little note about a video that I saw a woman make talking about women always thinking that they deserve a man who is like better than them or better than they deserve, and how women should date down and how women should date an Adam Sandler type. Which I just was like, oh my god, like how insulting to Adam Sandler. Adam Sandler's a very successful man. To my knowledge, he's been married for quite a while. I don't really know a lot about him and his details. I think Adam Sandler's much better looking than Pete Davidson, if you ask me. We need to stop getting so caught up in what men look like and realize that men's value in general is in much more in their physical appearance. So, like, a man who you think maybe has looks that's a 5 but is a multimillionaire is automatically gonna be whatever, I don't know, I don't like the number scale, but he's gonna be more valuable. Pete Davidson has more value as a comedian because he makes a ton of money and is famous. His value is not just in that he's funny. There's a lot of guys in the world that are a hell of a lot funnier than Pete Davidson, and they're not getting women. Trust me, I've known a lot of them. Years ago, and I remember there was this guy who was hitting on me. He was making me kind of uncomfortable because it was really inappropriate that he was hitting on me. I was telling my friend about it, and she was like, is he cute? And I was like, he kind of looks a little bit like Eminem. And she was like, oh my god, Eminem's hot. And I was like, yeah, because he's Eminem. Like, just a regular random guy on the street who just happens to look like him is not hot. Like, that's different. Like, a man who has something going for him, has, you know, money and power on its most superficial level, is always going to have more value. A man who has drive and direction on a deeper level, who can protect and provide, like those things, those men are going to have more value regardless of their height, regardless of their physical appearance. Yeah, a man who's taller, a man who's got more muscle, those things are always going to be pluses when it comes to men. However, if you're a man who's shorter, if you're a man who, you know, you're fit but you just don't happen to have a ton of muscle, like, there's so many other ways that you can, that make you more masculine and that can actually enhance your masculine energy and enhance your ability to attract women, that really have nothing to do with you getting like the largest muscles or being the tallest man in the world. So I don't want men to get too caught up in this whole like, why are women attracted to someone like Pete Davidson, when it's like, at the end of the day, most women aren't. So it's the appeal, it's the buzz, it's the media that is basically convincing us that Pete Davidson is this like heartthrob in Hollywood. It's not really because that's what women are looking for, at least not most women, and especially not most feminine women. Again, I don't know how many men are gonna watch this. If you're a woman watching this and you agree with me, please share this with as many of your man friends or the man community. Manosphere? I don't know what that term means anyway. But anyway, because I don't want men to get off track because of all of this media manipulation around this one person who seems to be popular right now. Just my thoughts. I hope some of you learned something from this. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. If you have any thoughts on this video or any other topic suggestions, let me know. Leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'd love to hear from you. I love your suggestions. If you're a woman watching this and would like to connect to her feminine energy, I have online courses. Details are in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.